Hello and welcome to this week's Videocast. Last week I showed you a clip from a sitcom and made the point that arguments energise communication, having a sense of conviction or something you want to get across. But some people will look at that and say, yeah, that's actors or that's comedy, that's not relevant. It's not relevant to my presentations, for example. But it actually is, and maybe these clips will close the gap between you and the communicator. These are two very ordinary people communicating in very real circumstances, and I would say with no communication experience whatsoever, doing so brilliantly because of that sense of conviction. And there's something else that's energising these communications, and I want you to see if you can kind of figure out what that is. There's two clips. They're both from radio because you often get more authentic, natural kind of communications when you don't force a camera on somebody's face. Also, you have more ordinary people on radio. The first clip is a guy in A&E, his name is Ross O'Brien. He's in A&E with his uncle who had Down syndrome and some breathing difficulties and dementia and needed to be looked after. And as you know, in A&E, the trolley crisis and so on, it's kind of bedlam, and he's telling his story around that. So just listen to the clip. I'll make some comments afterwards. It's about a minute long.
We're there to make sure he feels safe in the environment that he's in, an unknown environment, you know. And it's hard for people not knowing Paul to understand, and anybody with a disability, and even elderly people. You can see it in there. I've helped out elderly people throughout the night, trying to get out of bed, and you know they're pulling their shoes out and stuff. You know, you give the nurse a heads up, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Describe for people who can't see what it's like being in an emergency department like that when it's busy like this.
I'll explain to you exactly what it is. It's like looking at a building going on fire and bodies everywhere, scrambling, just scrambling. Like, I mean, it's disgraceful to see people scrambling around beds. Like, they're pushing people through to resuscitation units, and they're pushing beds out of the way. My uncle's bed was shoved out of the way because it was in the corridor last night when there was someone coming through the ambulance door to get resuscitated after having a major heart attack. And it was clear for me to see it. And like, dignity goes out the window as well when you're in A&E. There's no dignity or respect for anyone in A&E, especially when they're lying in the middle of corridors and they're doubled up in single bays with curtains drawn and trolleys left outside the corner.
I really like the way there's just this sort of fluidity and energy and bounce to what he says. It flows like water. If you listen to it again, there's great rhythms and it's just so fluid. There's no inhibitions, there's no remembering lines, there's no awkwardness, there's no dullness, it just flows. And it comes from this sense of the fact that there's an earnestness about it as well. It's not like it's a sort of a gripey, rhetorical point that you often get on radio, somebody trying to lobby for something or make some point. He's just, you know, sharing his experience and making his point out of that. And there's a great earnestness about it. And again, just completely fluid and punchy and clear. And this second clip, you could say, takes the ordinary punter idea even further. Somebody almost certainly hasn't been on radio. And again, you'll hear the same thing. But again, listen out and see if there's something else that you can pick out of this, apart from the sense of getting an opinion across that energises this communication. This guy, John, from Waterford, was interviewed. He was setting up camp on the canal because he was homeless. So this is unbelievable, really. But this guy was just asked for some of his opinions or thoughts or reflections or some of his story. And there's about a minute and 10 seconds of this. And again, listen to the communication and the energy of it.
Separated from the wife and the kids. Lost their house. And they ended up on the street. The horse we were working there, a roofer. When I lost my job in my house and that there, I ended up losing my job. And then obviously you need an address to get a job, you know. Hard enough to get an old job there and you live in a tent. My plans, I'm just hoping to get a different place. You know, I'm trying to give myself no rent accommodation. But you know yourself, nobody is giving them jumps at you. Nobody is giving them whatsoever.
Are you on the housing list right now, are you?
I'm on the housing list, but you could be waiting 8-9 years. But as I said there, the government, they definitely need to buck up on themselves, hop on themselves. I'm saying it's all right for them old fellas there. They have plenty of money, they have big comfortable beds to go back to. They don't care. I think the rich is getting richer and the poor is getting poor. But they're giving you no opportunities whatsoever. Pulling you back there, left, right and centre. And then when you go and look for an old place, then they haven't got it. But yet they're on the radio 7 days of the week and the TV 7 days of the week. They're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing nothing, to be honest with you. Covering their own backs. That's all they're doing, to be honest with you. A load of rubbish. They're a disgrace to the public. That's the truth. If half of them there now a week or so out in a tent like this here, and there would be long changing their attitudes, realising then what life is all about.
I heard that in the car driving to Galway in October, and I went back through the podcast and fished it out again for the purposes of this clip. I just love the energy of it and the fact that it's a different accent and there's different figures of speech, and it just it flows and bounces along so seamlessly, and there's this great energy again. And the thing that it really energizes these two clips is not just the fact that these people are stating a heartfelt opinion, but they're both telling their own story. They were both, we were here and this is what we discovered and found, this is what we experienced. And I'm blue in the face, and everyone who helps anyone with communications is blue in the face telling people to use their stories. Your stories are really the only valuable thing you have. Technical material or whatever it is you're presenting is probably documented somewhere. It's the stories around that give it energy. Any job ad that you ever read, it's 5 years experience in sales, 10 years management experience, 10 years C++ programming experience. It's your experience that makes you valuable. What you've lived through and what you're sharing back with people, and it gives your communication such energy when you bring those stories in. To be honest though, those clips to me, they're not just so much a point that I want to make about communications or presentations. I just actually think they're things of beauty in their own right. They're just, when you hear somebody conversing, speaking, it could be a friend in a pub telling you a story, you take it for granted, but there's an amazing sophistication going on there, just all these different things, and throw in on top of the clips that you heard there, the body language, the eye contact, the facial expressions as well. It's just a whole symphony of stuff. Everyone who communicates, and we all do it every day of our lives, it's like playing a musical instrument to the most amazing skill level, and it's just amazing to behold. And I would encourage you to listen to those clips again, because they actually get more interesting or more sort of compelling when you listen to them a second or a third time. Anyway, next week we'll be finding out what this man is frowning at. In a clip that is very subtle and yet incredibly unsubtle at the same time, and I think really very funny. In the meantime, if you like this, share it or like it or whatever, and I'll talk to you next week.